So I'm Keith Brekhus. I'm the district director for Congressman O'Halloran, who represents Arizona 1st District, which includes this part of Gila County. It doesn't include Payson, or not actually Young, where supervisors climbs from, but of Globe and Miami, and then all the way up to the west end of the Grand Canyon and down to Oro Valley. So it's a big area. And I'm glad this is a lightning round, because if I make a mistake, I'm going to call it lightning caused and manage it for resources rather than try to suppress it as human error. But so a few things, I guess. One of the biggest things we dealt with in our district the whole year is wildfires and post-fire flooding. It's probably the single biggest issue as district director I deal with, because I don't do policy, I don't do bills in Congress. I'm here on the ground talking to people, and so it is the single biggest issue. I mean, I feel like I have Todd Abel's section chief on rewind, because not only did he do all the briefings for Telegraph Fire, but the Incident 1 team also went up to Raphael and Flagstaff later in the summer when they had their fire. So these things have been happening over and over. And so I think what we've kind of learned is that a lot of the federal policies in place, or even historically, have not served the forest very well, have not served people very well after disaster. So we're looking at ways to change that. So I didn't come with a bunch of ideas. I actually, rather than talk about, give talking points or whatever, everybody always hears those, I'm kind of going to piggyback on things I heard today of sort of do-outs that our office can kind of look at and try to do better. And one thing, I guess, since we're here on watersheds, is I am encouraged that the new forest chief, when they're trying to deal with the 4-Fry contract that blew up on the 4 forests and didn't go through, one thing that they're kind of looking at instead is prioritizing major fire sheds. So I'm glad that at sort of the national level, they're starting to look at the fire landscape as watersheds instead of sort of a large scale contract. Because one of the problems for low value wood is it's not very profitable. So we have to figure out ways to thin the forest or do prescribed burning that does what it does to protect communities. Because we know, like when the Telegraph Fire hit the Pinel Fire, that slowed it down, that protected a community. When the Raphael Fire up north hit some previous fires to the east, that protected the community. So we really got to look at how we're doing that, protecting communities in these critical watersheds, making sure that we have fire breaks, either that we're creating, or if there's a natural fire, if it's the right time of the year, maybe letting it do what it needs to do so that we're protecting people. And then the post-fire flooding, of course, is a huge thing. Once you have the big fire, the flows are 6 to 8 times what they're normal. People are caught off guard. So we just have a better policy for dealing with that. So I want to work with everybody in this room to figure out things we can do better, how we can get money to the projects that are needed. I think it's very true what people said earlier, that the government tends to be reactive. And we also show up for the big shiny object. Elected officials come to fires. They don't as often come to thinning projects ahead of time or whatever. We've been on a couple, so we're not for whatever on that. But I mean, I think it's really important that we're doing stuff on the front end and not just reacting and throwing money at suppression, because it gets really expensive and there's a lot of problems. Then we're dealing with devastation instead of prevention. So I think moving to a more preventative model. I also heard Todd when he spoke. I think it's really important when we're thinking about forest management also that we're not just thinking about tall pines, because for all the attention they're getting up in Flagstaff for the post-museum fire flooding, and they should be because it is devastating to people downstream, we also have to remember that in Gila County in the last couple of years, we've had hundreds and hundreds of thousands of acres burned. And if they're not thinking of bushfire and Telegraph or Mescal as forest fires, or they're not thinking about how to remove that timber, the invasive grass, or do whatever they need to do to mitigate there, we're going to have problems. So, and I know these fires got people's attention, so it's not like people don't know that Tonto's a national forest, but the timber industry, people that are working on contracts, there's nothing for them here. So we have to figure out ways where we're subsidizing best practices or doing whatever it is. I suppose subsidy is not a great word, but doing whatever we need to do to encourage best practices. And with that, I don't think I'll say anything else. There's lots of other areas that I could cover.
but I don't think in 5 minutes I should try to do everything. But please reach out to our office because we don't know what we don't know. And we want to be partners with the communities. The fire doesn't care. It doesn't care if you vote. The flood waters don't care whether, this is a Republican house, Democrat house. I mean, and we got to all work on this together. This is a regional and state and national Western issue. And so we want to do as much as we can to be supportive partners and figure out solutions to these complicated problems.
Thank you, Pete.